Believe it or not, the Challenger Tour won last week. How did it contribute to the way the Roland Garros draw descended into chaos? With all the 5-set matches and the state of the third and the fourth rounds? How about Colton Smith, who finally won a challenger level title outdoors? And how did the other challenger level finals go? Welcome to the 13th episode of the Challenger Corner. Before we get into the usual challenger and pathway stories, this is one of the rare moments where something from a Grand Slam or sometimes Masters 1000 level actually stands out. And this time, it was to what extent the Roland Garros men's singles draw opened up, especially during the third and the fourth rounds. I didn't expect that extent a month ago, but this is a great time to give some shout outs to those players competing in the challenger level and or the WTA 125 who came all the way from including the qualifying rounds or played the 175 before the tournament and even going deep as we continue the quarterfinals by the time of this recording. In the men's singles sector, for instance, the draw is opening up because of three reasons. First, due to Carlos Alcaraz's withdrawal as he sustained a wrist injury since Barcelona. And then second, it was Yannick Sinner's early exit to Juan Manuel Cerundolo in the second round from 6-2, 6-2, 5-1 up to 6-2, 6-2, 5-7, 1-6, 1-6. He had the chance to serve for the match twice, but he got hit-related issues that affected his physicality, and Juanma did what he had to do for the other half of the match. The third one is the third round exit of Novak Djokovic to Joao Fonseca 4-6, 4-6, 6-3, 7-5, 7-5, which raised a question if Joao finally arrived as he tried to defy the expectations, especially knowing Brazil and his potential as well. There might be some names remaining by the time I recorded this, but a month ago I blurted out a joke on the extent the field opens up, which was the Roland Garros 2004 that struck my mind at first because the semifinals featured three Argentinians and a Brit, which was Tim Henman. And this produced an all-Argentinian final between Gaston Gaudio and Guillermo Coria, which Gaston won. Speaking of Argentinians, this is also a special shout-out because they fielded the most players in the third round singles since 2006, men's and women's singles combined, with Solana Sierra and then the Cerundolo brothers, Juanma and Fran, then Thiago Agustin Tirante and Francisco Comesaña. And despite their eliminations either at the third or the fourth rounds, they should all be proud of their runs. This might be a case to defend or even expand the golden swing because if you notice, some of the standout juniors competing in the Roland Garros Junior Championships right now, as we record this, the expansion or even golden swing has to stay because the passion and talent combined is there. Just Latin America as a region just got overlooked for whatever reason. While you could see not only talents coming every year and then they have their own ITF Challenger swings, but also it shall translate somewhere, which started from the golden swing itself. On the other hand, most players in the third or even fourth round partook in the challenger events this year, including a 175, with some examples that included people who were eliminated before the quarterfinals, by the time this was recorded, are Juan Manuel Cerundolo, who won the Bordeaux 175 event, and he lost to Matteo Berrettini in the fourth round, and he also survived an epic almost 6-hour match against Martin Landaluce. And we also have Matteo Arnaldi, who won the Cagliari 175 event and will contest the quarterfinals against Matteo Berrettini, who also played that event despite the quarterfinal loss. This will be night session, highly recommended to watch or follow along, as both players were outside of the top 100 at the start of the tournament. And guess what? They're back on track. Some other honorable mentions here among other people playing the challenger level events and still made it to the third and or fourth round in Roland Garros are first Jesper de Jong, who made it to the fourth round as a lucky loser, marking his return to the top 100 despite the fourth round loss against Alexander Zverev. And then the second one being Jaime Faria, who came from the qualifying rounds to the third round, and he lost to Frances Tiafoe in 5 sets. And it marked another year with 2 Portuguese players at the stage, with Nuno Borges as well in that round, despite the loss to Andrei Rublev. The third name I also would like to mention is Zachary Svajda. He won the San Diego Challenger earlier this year, steadily getting the spark back after ending his season early last season due to family emergency, and then his dad passed away as well, and then this was one of his best slam runs as he lost to Flavio Cobolli in the fourth round, a rare one considering his game, and then on the clay courts of Roland Garros as well. But guess what? We are heading to his favorite grass season, where who knows, he can make even better run than Roland Garros. Hopefully, probably, game and draw willing. This is also a breakout season for 27th seed Rafael Hodar, who runner-up the Canberra Challenger earlier this year, which confirmed his further rise despite the quarterfinal loss last night. This also marks his first Grand Slam quarterfinals, and with Joao Fonseca, both are becoming the first 2006 born to reach this stage, if I'm not mistaken. So the question until this point would be, to what extent the ATP is opening up now with the current semi-final outlook and the remaining quarterfinals? We'll see, because there are some kind of scenarios that can emerge from this. For the WTA, also shout out to Maya Chwalinska, who will contest her quarterfinals soon by the time of this recording, after defeating Diane Perry, who also won the Paris 125 event the other week. This is a long-awaited breakthrough for Maya after coming from the qualifying rounds, and she notably won the Oeiras Outdoor 125 several months ago. But knowing her and sometimes the inability to catch a break and then fighting depression at one point, if I'm not mistaken, if she's also on her way to follow Iga Swiatek's footsteps, who knows? No pressure at all, but it remains a possibility after all. And honestly, the WTA 125 also benefits from this. And if only the WTA did something to celebrate the 125 success as well, that would be great, as much as the ATP does in the challengers. Looking at the stories in Roland Garros and the extent the draw is opening up, this is actually where this week's challenger level events come in, where these stories initially emerge and these players progress, and sort of where these moments are built. So we start this week's finals with the first Centurion Challenger in South Africa, where Giles Hussey defeated Edward Winter 6-3, 6-3. This is Giles' maiden challenger singles final, and Edward, who is a Pepperdine University senior, also became the runner-up to Jay Friend in the Fairfield Challenger last year, which also was an epic match in itself. So both Giles and Edward fought for their maiden challenger singles title, but Giles was pretty much in control from the back throughout hitting Edward's forehands. For instance, in the first set, Giles already started with a forehand winner and scoring a different forehand pass before Edward's failed slices contributed to the earlier break to 3-2. But Giles had foiled break points in the 7th game before Edward massively held 2-4-3. That included a smash from Giles to force a different deuce at one point. Giles then fired a successful backhand pass to start the game. He broke for the set 6-3 thanks to a successful volley. In the second set, Giles had a backhand pass before Edward held 2-1-1. He tried to break that early, but he only found a way to break after finding a 4-shot forehand winner to start the 9th game before Edward's failed slice, and a double fault somewhere contributed to that break, and Giles notably fired a different backhand winner to start the game. He served for the title before he succeeded, taking the second set 6-3 to clinch his maiden challenger singles title. This marked Giles' provisional top 300 debut in singles, and who knows what the tournament have in store this week for the second Centurion Challenger. The second Challenger level final was the Vicenza Challenger, where 7th seed Lukas Neumeier defeated wildcard Jacopo Vasami 6-2, 6-2. Lukas previously runner-up 6 different challengers and recently won the Barletta Challenger for his first ever challenger title, while for Jacopo this is his maiden career challenger singles final, and he won the Monza Challenger doubles final last year in 2025. So in the first set, Lukas already set the tone through a cross-court forehand winner right at the first point, but Jacopo saved it with a different forehand winner and even survived several break points, including one of Jacopo's game point save through a different drop shot. But Jacopo still held his serve to 1-0, and the break only happened in the third game to 2-1 in Lukas's favor, moments after Jacopo's +1 forehand error. There was a different post-drop shot pass that contributed to the Austrians' double break lead to 4-1, and despite Jacopo's rare smash 3 points into the next game, Lukas still consolidated his position to 5-1. Jacopo then survived a set point before Lukas took the first set 6-2, but the wildcard had to take a medical timeout after. It wasn't visible on camera though what happened, but hope he's okay. Lukas somehow did what he had to do in the second set, breaking early to 1-0 thanks to a different passing shot, doubling the break on his forehand pass to 4-1, and he survived Jacopo's rare forehand winner before taking the set 6-2 as well, clinching his second career and year-to-date challenger title, approximately rising to 164 live by the end of the tournament. The third challenger final that week was the Chisinau Challenger in Moldova, where Stefanos Sakelaridis defeated qualifier Cesar Cretu 6-7, tiebreak score 7-1, 6-3, 6-3. Stefanos previously won a challenger title in New Delhi earlier this year, While this is Cesar's maiden Challenger singles final after winning the EAC Challenger doubles title 2 years ago with Bogdan Pavel. This match began with 4 holds in the opening set before Cesar fired a working volley for his break to 3-2, but he got broken back thanks to Stefanos's preceding forehand at the 4th point of the 8th game before the break eventually happened through a forehand winner to 4-4. And Stefanos even had a couple of set points due to Cesar's backhand error, but it didn't happen, and the tiebreaker became inevitable to settle this set. A crucial shot here was Cesar's drop shot and backhand pass combination for his hold to 2-1 before Stefanos' double fault for the mini break to 3-1. But Steph also missed a forehand that widened the lead, and Cesar eventually dominated the tiebreaker with winning them 7-1 to take that first set 7-6, tiebreak score 7-1. In the second set, Steph survived several of Cesar's break chances, including moments after a cross-court forehand winner right at the second point. But Steph massively held to 2-2, but he created a breakpoint through a different pass before breaking to 3-2. That might have set the tone, but he got broken back to 3-3 over a swift return from Cesar to Steph's +1 error, but he broke back again to 4-3 after a smash at the third point before Cesar missed his forehands. And for the same reason, Steph broke for the second set 6-3 outside of Cesar's backhand issues after consolidating to 5-3, and this almost repeated at the third set where Steph had a defense to offense with a backhand down the line finish when he broke to 3-1, only to be broken back over a loose service game before Cesar also had another sluggish service game to be broken back to 4-3, and Steph had not looked back since, taking the third set 6-3 for his second challenger title of this year and his career, provisionally closer to the top 150 at around 152 or something by the end of the tournament. In the Košice Challenger, Kilian Feldbusch defeated 6th seed Martin Krumich 6-0, 4-6, 6-4. Kilian previously was the runner-up of the Maspalomas Challenger back in 2023 and Biella Challenger in 2025, while this is Martin's maiden Challenger singles final, so fair to say that both of them tried to win their first Challenger singles title. The first set was a one-way traffic on Kilian's half after his forehand pass confirmed his hold to 1-0. He also scored a successful volley at the game he broke to 2-0, with his previous forehands went after Martin's unforced errors that carried the rest of the set. The question arose when it might have probably been caused by Martin's nerves, but it might or might not be the case as Martin leveled up his game in the second set. This is where Martin broke early due to Kilian's backhand error to 1-0, but he got broken back to 2-2 due to his forehand error. Kilian's forehand then helped him to break to 4-2, but this turned out to be a scenic route in his regard, as Martin's forehand winner created a break-back point before the break to 4-3 happened. Kilian almost broke back with his smashes, and there was a different pass several points before that. Even if Martin held to 4-4, Martin was able to break to 5-4 after Kilian missed his +1 forehand, if I'm not mistaken, taking the second set 6-4 to force the deciding set. And in the third set, it was Martin's forehand error that contributed to Kilian's break to 2-0, but Martin broke back to 2-1 thanks to some of his passes earlier in that game. Martin had to take a medical timeout for likely a back issue, but Kilian took advantage of that situation and broke back to 5-3 thanks to his cross-court forehand pass finish, taking the second set on return because he got broken back moments after Martin's smash. This marked Kilian's maiden Challenger singles title, putting him around 285 live by the end of the tournament. Last but not least, it was the Little Rock Challenger that closed that week, where 3rd seed Colton Smith defeated 5th seed Michael Moe 6-2, 6-4. Colton won the Cleveland Challenger for 2 consecutive years, 2025 and 2026, and all of them came indoors, while he also defended an outdoor challenger final in Birmingham, where he lost to Otto Virtanen 4-6, 4-6. On the other hand, Michael won the Morelos Challenger earlier this year and became the runner-up of the second Abidjan Challenger when he lost to Gauthier Anclang. After a dominant start from Colton, an electronic line calling error on match point almost ruined Colton's momentum, but the swift return did the job at the end. How was that possible? So in the first set, Colton started by firing a forehand pass at the game Michael held to 1-1, but Michael broke early 2-1. At the game, he fired a cross-court forehand finish to Colton's smash that created his latest break point, but Colton's cross-court forehand to Michael's unforced error contributed to the breakback to 2-all. A backhand return winner happened for Colton's juice before he broke to 4-2. He then consolidated to 5-2 before he had a working smash to start the game after breaking to take the first set 6-2 over Michael's forehand error. However, the start of the second set was interrupted due to heat. I didn't expect that considering how the Little Rock Challenger was rained out for a couple of occasions. But nature do nature, and it took several hours before the play resumed. The play then resumed around 2 or 3 hours later at the start of the second set, where Colton's crucial break came from his depth in the fourth game, where he started by going side to side on defense, firing his preceding forehand to win the first point, and he also had a couple of smashes the point after before Michael's failed smash finished that point, followed by his cross-court backhand pass for his break point several points later, but Colton broke 2-3-1 at the end. But Michael almost broke back thanks to a cross-court backhand finish that created his breakpoint. Colton saved that, massively holding to 5-2, and he had a couple of match points in the ninth game, but the other one was foiled over a +1 forehand error on his half, but that one came after what's supposed to be an unreturned serve turned out to be replayed because of the electronic line calling error or something, and Michael somehow found a cross-court forehand pass for his break back to 5-4. The moment didn't last too long because there was a backhand let court moment from Colton at the second point of the next game before he somehow had a match point, and Colton took that advantage by scoring a cross-court forehand return winner to break for the second set 6-4, eventually clinching his third career challenger title on his second final outdoors, and this confirmed his rise to around 171 live then by the end of the tournament. We are now moving on to this week's trajectory watch out of the bright lights of the Roland Garros, where notice that some people play in either fast hard courts or some clay events, where I thought was Little Rock fast enough, asking the question of how will it translate to grass, if any, especially if some of these players later on play in the Wimbledon qualifying rounds. From last week's title list alone, I felt like there could be a top 100 likelihood for some people if their forms hold, but before that extent, I'm actually glad that Lucas Neumeier, Stefanos Sakellarides, and Colton Smith are making more leaps. Colton, for instance, had a grass runner-up last year in Birmingham to defend this year, but probably and hopefully The title in Little Rock could make up a little bit for it, and the way Lucas and Stefanos grounded out to finally break their ground and win two challenger titles this year are much appreciated. Not to mention that Edward Winter, by the time this was recorded, already nailed his second Centurion Challenger opening match. So hopefully his singles title will come sooner or later, no pressure. But looking at Giles Hussey and how he ended up winning the title, well deserved, I'd say. So watch out on either more challengers or even the grass season, probably. And I'm also curious what's next for Kilian Feldbausch with that row and how he developed, at least coming back from his previous injury, if I'm not mistaken. Hope he stays healthy because it looked like he's back on track and trying to pick up where he left off. And now it's time for the classic shoutouts, where I nominated 4 matches in the weekly poll. So the first one was the second round Chisinau Challenger match, the Italian derby between Lorenzo Giustino and Luca Nardi. The second one was the quarterfinals of the Little Rock Challenger between Andre Ilagan and Aiden Mayo. The third challenger match I nominated was the Vicenza Challenger semifinal between Zheng Chun-sin and Lukas Neumeier, which turned out was a grindfest. And the last one was the first Centurion Challenger quarterfinals between Semen Pankin and Eliakim Koulibaly, which also involved a third set coaster. I unfortunately had to cut the first round match in Chisinau between Francesco Maestrelli and Kimmer Kopejans, considering the other coaster, which took slightly longer, but in tennis Twitter language, it also was a different level of pain and suffering follow or watch. I also give my honorable mentions to two Vicenza first round battles between Tristan Boyer against Miguel Damas and Manas Damne versus Federico Ferreira Silva, but the nomination went to the grindfest of Zheng Chun-sin and Lukas Neumeier, which lasted around 3 hours more or less. And I also had Yuta Shimizu against Bernard Tomic, which was the second round of the Little Rock Challenger on my list. And it was also something since Bernie came back from a breakdown. But it was a tough choice to also cut Max Kasnikowski against Franco Roncadelli from the first round of the Košice Challenger. After briefly looking at the coaster of Semen taking Eliakim in the first Centurion Challenger. Another one on the thread also mentioned the Little Rock Challenger quarterfinals between Jay Friend and Justin Boulay. Still worth mentioning because probably the scoreline lied because of how they constructed their points and some rallying back and forth and so on. All the singles talk, and now we are moving to the doubles watch. So I'm going to also honor the winners from the Challenger Tour doubles sector in this section. Still, highly recommended to check the out rounds from the quarterfinals to the finals of all men's, women's, and mixed double sectors in Roland Garros alongside other sectors that have doubles from juniors to wheelchairs. So first, in the first Centurion Challenger, Konstantang Bitun Kuzmin and Robert Strombach, the first seeds of the event, defeated Mert Alkaya and Arda Askara 6-4, 6-4. The pair runner-up the second Abidjan Challenger to Oscar Brostrom Poulsen and Brendan Suarez, and paired throughout this African swing where they also partook in some other ITF events together as well. In Vicenza Challenger, Eric Grevelius and Adam Heinonen defeated Remy Bertola and Francesco Forti 7-6 tie-break score 7-1, 7-6 tie-break score 7-5. Eric and Adam started the season by winning the Soma Bay and second Oeiras Challenger, the indoor hard iteration titles, and this marked their third challenger title together as a pair this year. In Chisinau, second seeds George Goldhoff and Theodore Winegar defeated Nathaniel Lemons and Jackson Withrow 6-1, 6-4. This is George's and Theodore's second challenger title together after winning last week's Istanbul Istinye Challenger, while Nathaniel and Jackson also was the runner-up of the Morelia Challenger since they reunited for the year. In Kosice, first seeds Milos Karol and Nino Serdarusic defeated Lukas Pokorny and David Polyak, the second seeds of the event, 5-7, 7-6 tiebreak score of 7-4, and 10-5 in the match tiebreak. This is Milos and Nino's first challenger title together as a pair this year, but Milos and Nino individually won 2 challenger doubles titles. Milos also became the runner-up of 3 different challenger level tournaments this year, while Nino previously won the Zadar Challenger with Gonzalo Escobar. In the Little Rock Challenger, Pranav Kumar and Carl Pauling defeated Eric Pechem and Jakub Verba, who were the wildcards to this event, 6-4, 6-1. Pranav and Carl previously won the Metapec Challenger, making this their second challenger title together, also making it to the Morelos Challenger quarterfinal together when they lost to Miguel Angel Reyes Varela and Federico Zeballos. While Eric and Jakub attended the University of Arkansas, they graduated from their event, which tennis program reinstated after briefly ended over funding issues. So this NIL, name, image, likeness thing, is a different T for college sports, but let's save the T for later. But what matters is Eric and Jakub runner-upping this event where they studied. And now it's time to shout out some select ITF singles winners for the previous week. So in the men's, there were 5 M25 events. So first in M25 Karnak, Daniel Judd defeated 4th seed Arthur Nagel 6-2, 6-2 for his maiden ITF title. Another youngster triumphs in M25 Kursum Liska Banya as Alexander Vasilev defeated 6th seed Dennis Klock 6-2, 4-6, 6-2, also for his first ever ITF singles title. In M25 Troisdorf, 5th seed Max Schoenhaus, who is currently competing in Heilbronn or Bad Rappenau Challenger, defeated 7th seed Mika Petkovic 6-4, 6-3 for his third ITF title. In M25 Grado in Italy, top seed Oliver Crawford defeated 4th seed Gianmarco Ferrari 7-6 tiebreak score 9-7, 6-2 for his 14th ITF title. In M25 Ball, Noah Fukadin, who currently attends the Clemson University as a rising senior, defeated 2nd seed Duje Ajdukovic 2-6, 7-5, 6-3 in an all-Croatian derby for his maiden ITF title as well. A mix of youngsters and collegians, right? I also would like to shout out some select M15 title winners from the first time ITF winners such as Kailan Bigun in Lakewood and Tian Hui Chang in Luan. And for collegians, Friedrich Lechno Wasiutinsky in Sakat-Zor, who is an alumnus of UC Berkeley, Cal Bears, and Yasin Dlimi, who also won an M15 title in Monastir, also attended the University of Central Florida. Again, watch out for these collegians as they're out and about in this summer holiday, because who knows, they might as well take over some titles at best. In the women's sector, there were 2 W75 and 3 W35 events. So in W75 Kursum Liska Banya, 2nd seed Laura Samson defeated 1st seed Lola Radivojevic 6-3, 3-6, 7-5 for her 8th ITF title. In W75 Zaragoza, Jennifer Gary defeated third seed Kayla Day 3-6, 6-3, 7-6 tiebreak score 7-3 for her fourth ITF title. In W35 Wichita, Reese Brandmeier, who attended the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, part of the Tar Heels team, defeated fourth seed Sahajaya Malapalli 6-4, 6-0 for her second ITF title. In W35 ball, Aurora Zantedeshi defeated Valentina Ivanov 6-3, 6-2 for her third ITF title. In W35 Wuning, first seed Alexandra Shubladze defeated third seed Hina Inoue 6-4, 6-1 for her 12th ITF title. Alexandra won a couple of ITF titles this year, so watch out for her in some higher levels. Also shout out to select W15 titleists such as Dennis Dilek in Kayseri and Tatum Evans in Lakewood for their first ITF titles. And another notable W15 winner is Hiromi Abe, winning her sixth ITF title, if I'm not mistaken, in Fukui as she tried to carve her way back. And how about this week's broad overview? So, we are now entering the second week of Roland Garros, which is why outside of the main single sectors, it is also recommended to check other sectors like the start of the wheelchair sector, the out rounds of doubles, and check out the rising talents in the junior sectors, singles, and doubles alike. Not to mention that at this point, we have 6 ATP Challenger tournaments and 2 WTA 125 events, the WTA ones being in Birmingham and Foggia, marking the start of the grass season. Foggia, however, is played on clay, and the ATP also have 2 125-point events in Birmingham, a joint event with the WTA 125 event, and Perugia, which is also an Italian clay court event, as well as another hard court event in Tyler. The rest are challenger events in Heilbronn or Bad Rappenau, Prostieov, and another hard court event in the second Centurion Challenger. So for some people who are already listed in the Wimbledon qualifying rounds, which was announced earlier this week, the question would be their transition to grass despite limited grass events. Not to mention that next week we will also have a grass court event in Dublin, the first for the year. But notice that some challengers this week got rained out, like Birmingham the other day, and then Tyler, which concluded their qualifying rounds as I recorded this section. But also check the start of some second rounds and how the draw shaped up, because not sure to what extent it would help us brainstorm the Wimbledon qualifying rounds, but the pace could be really fast, so could be an interesting turnaround from some fast hards or some other grass tournaments, or fast clay to the grass surface. Even the best names tussled this week. For example, Andrea Pellegrino, who's supposed to defend the Perugia Challenger this week, tussled against qualifier Max Kasnikowski. Not to mention, Otto Virtanen is also defending his Birmingham Challenger title this week, among others. Surely a lot of other stories in store, right? By the way, I have been covering the Challenger Tour and other lower tier circuits as a fan for some time now. So if you enjoy the podcast or the overall work, I have a support link in the captions of either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you're listening this podcast from. No pressure at all, but it would help support the project. Thank you for listening to this week's stories, and we'll see you for even more stories next week. Until then, everyone, see you!